Good evening and welcome to the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting. Today is Tuesday, April 24th, 2018. The first order of business is to move into public session. Can I please have a motion? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Can we please rise and pledge allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next order of business is to put our agenda in order. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda? Then can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Second? All in favor? Okay, next is our consent agenda. Can I please have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Does anybody have anything that they need pulled first? No? Okay. Second then? Thank you. Okay. Now I would like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Hochreiter.
Yeah, two things. One, for the public to be made aware, in tonight's consent agenda was a resolution. In tonight's consent agenda that the board just unanimously approved was a resolution to increase our school safety personnel. The Board of Education for quite some time has been deliberating about revisiting the school resource officer model, and tonight the school board has adopted a resolution to begin negotiations with both the County of Westchester as well as the New York State Police to discuss and essentially determine the best model to go forward with a full-time school resource officer for the district that will be housed at the high school. We took that extra step today because it is a negotiation. There are multiple police agencies that serve our community, and so we have to do a request for proposal and allow them to respond and have conversations with both the county and the state police in terms of the model and the level of service that they can provide. Also, in the resolution that the board approved tonight was increasing our school safety personnel by creating 3 new positions. So our model right now at Hendrick Hudson High Schools, we have 6 individuals who are school safety personnel. The resolution that the board just approved tonight was to move that number from 6 to 9. While the schedule will be made out, we'll determine the best fit in terms of deploying those 9 personnel. We do want the community to know that we'll have continue to have full-time security personnel at the high school. We will also have full-time security personnel at the middle school, and those individuals will have very visible and frequent presence at all 3 elementary schools. So that was a very important vote that the board took tonight to move forward in that manner. Certainly we're going to try to expedite the process, but there are processes we have to follow in terms of posting for the job and interviews and those sort of things. But we did not want to wait for September 1st when school starts. We wanted to get this underway and get it going now. So I'll entertain any questions that the board may have.
I just have one. So with the new security plan put together, what would happen if the bond vote does not pass on the security plan?
So what's in the bond vote is around $7 million allocated toward safety and security upgrades. That includes windows and doors. That also includes renovating the main foyer at the middle school and the 3 elementary schools to make them safer and to direct traffic from folks who come in those doors directly to the main office or another sort of holding area. The safety and security upgrades in the bond also include significant technology upgrades in terms of security cameras both inside and outside of the building, exterior lighting, as well as software and hardware upgrades so that principals or other personnel, safety personnel, can do a lockdown with a click of a button, or that if certain doors are open that shouldn't be, it will send an alert to the security personnel. It will direct the surveillance cameras to those areas so we can see who's coming and entering the building. So this is in addition to what's in the bond. The bond is really brick and mortar and security systems, but what the board approved tonight were for personnel.
And everybody that was consulted feels that this is sufficient for our district?
They do. We've had a long conversation about revisiting the school resource officer model in our district. It started a long time ago with grant money from New York State that made it a little more affordable for school districts. It was a partnership between the school district and local municipalities to foot that bill. That money went away about 10 years ago, and some districts hung on to the model. Others went a different way. We were a district that went toward the school security personnel model, which at that time was a little more affordable, and I would acknowledge to everyone still is a little more affordable. But the value of having a full-time uniformed police officer in terms of prevention, in terms of someone who's there every day, and in terms of access to whether it's the county or the state police is certainly an added benefit. Okay. One more announcement before we get going. We're here at the Hendrick Hudson Free Library to celebrate the work of our fantastic young budding artists, and that could not be made possible without our fantastic art department. So this has become, tonight's meeting and the meetings that follow are a stretch of celebrations that our board and community want to make sure that we publicize. So tonight we're celebrating art students, and over the next couple of school board meetings into June, we'll celebrate our retirees and other personnel. So to give us a little background on tonight's show and what's happening in our art classrooms, I'd like to welcome up Kristen Dini, who will talk a little bit about the art show and how we made it here tonight.
Good evening, parents, teachers, board members, and administrators. Art is everywhere, all around us. If you enjoy the cars you drive, you can attribute it to art education. If you enjoy the clothes you wear, the images you see on the internet or TV, you can attribute it to art education. Even the food we eat, our whole way of life comes from some form of art. You can attribute this to art education. Hi, my name is Kristen Dini, and I'm one of the art teachers working at Frank G. Lindsay Elementary School. We are so happy that you are able to be here to join us this evening to celebrate our students' accomplishments, K through 12, in this exhibit titled Spatial Relations. We hope that you enjoy the students' artwork tonight, and also take a moment to notice how art education fosters creativity in our children. Art education teaches students to communicate with each other and the world through methods that transcend culture, gender, and linguistic boundaries. Through art education, we foster a mindset of problem solving and critical thinking in our art rooms every day. Equipping students with 21st century skills that will prepare them for careers that have not even been realized yet. This year, the art department focused on aligning curriculum with newly adopted New York State art standards, which are in line with the national art standards. The middle school is working hard on developing a digital makerspace to give students experiences in a broader range of design fields. The elementary art teachers are working toward adding more choice-based and STEAM-related art projects into their curriculum. And the high school students have had the opportunity to promote their art work through the high school online art gallery through a website called Artsonia, along with an Instagram account, HenHUD-HSR. I also want to take a moment to recognize the amazing career of Janet Aiello, who will be retiring this year from teaching art at the high school. Jan, you have touched so many lives through your caring, creative, innovative classes throughout the years. Your knowledge, skills, and amazing puppet shows will be greatly missed. I would like to leave you with this quote from Bob Bates of Inner City Arts. If we are to empower our youth, if we are to prepare them for a dynamic future, we must help them develop their creativity. As the essence of the human experience, it shapes the future. It is the building block that connects our human experience to life itself, a core discipline for developing human potential. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Just a note, on behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to sincerely thank the entire art department of our Hendrick Hudson School District for doing such an extraordinary amount of creative work with our students. We sincerely do appreciate all of the time and effort that you put into educating them and helping them to each grow and develop. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Okay, our next order of business is to receive the donations. Our first donation is a matching donation from New York Life for $2,990 to the Furnace Wood School, and we thank whoever donated. Very generous and extraordinary donation, so thank you very, very much. That is very much, yes, and we do appreciate it. Our next donation is again to the Barbara Katzenstein Scholarship Fund, and the family every year puts money towards a student being able to, or students being able to attend summer camp. So those students with significant handicap conditions can be able to attend camps, and that's in the amount of $1,773. So thank you again to the family for their extreme generosity. May I please have a motion to accept the donations?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Okay. Next, we're up to audience comments, and I would just like to say, because I feel like many people deserve an explanation of audience comments. Audience comments are, we are going back to our old format that we used to use for many years. You have received, or hopefully have received or picked up, a little pamphlet that explains exactly what audience comments are, what a board meeting is about, and we ask you, numerous times we have, to please restrain from any comments regarding students, personnel, or any litigation that has currently or previously happened within our district. We cannot talk about it. It's not right to talk about it in a public forum. We are, as always, making ourselves available. We have representation at PTA groups. We have representation outside in the community, and anybody, my email address is on the back, my phone number is on the website. I ask you to please, if something is bothering you, that you get in touch with me. I will set up meetings at any time with anybody. I also ask that if there is an issue, that all of you please go through proper channels, make sure that you have gone to the teacher involved, the principal, and then to Mr. Hochreiter. We have to protect the integrity of our administrators, our students, and our staff. So with that being said, we are asking for each person to speak for 3 minutes in order that you signed in. So if you didn't sign in, please sign in. Our first audience comments will be 15 minutes, and that's on non-agenda items, and our last will be 15 minutes on agenda items. So if anybody wishes to speak, Roseanne?
The first person is Rhonda Malhotra.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Malhotra. I'm a freshman at the high school. Members of the board, Superintendent Hochreiter. I attended the board meeting on March 12th and have not been able to attend again until tonight. I would like to thank Mr. Hochreiter for acknowledging the four Destination Imagination teams and wishing them well at the state competition. I'm happy to report that we had one team that will be advancing to the global finals. They are a group of elementary students from Furnace Woods, and they succeeded in their engineering challenge. They knocked the pants off of everybody. It was really fantastic. And they the picture of their faces when they went up to get their medals was precious. It was fantastic. I'd also like to thank Dr. Reller for her presentation at the March 12th meeting. I was really thrilled to hear that the district is adding a comprehensive digital arts program for grades 6 through 12. I think this is a perfect place to acknowledge that, sitting in the room with artwork from all of our students. I was also pleased to hear about the long-term strategy of more vertical planning in our curriculum and the expansion of Project Lead the Way. I was greatly impressed with all the support and work that is being accomplished at moving our teachers forward into the coming new decade. I think that the value of professional development that we can provide and the workshops that we're doing are immeasurable to them growing into the next decade. It offers the teachers fresh and new perspectives on teaching in today's world, and it's important to continue to offer these opportunities to our staff and to keep Penn Hud at a high level of student achievement. As a taxpayer, I fully support the use of this money. I would like to request that as safety and security measures are being addressed at all of the 5 schools, that the information is communicated to the parents and public in an email or a letter format, just so that everybody is in the know and can stay on top of what's happening. The news tonight is really great. I'm happy to hear that we're, starting to make plans that have perhaps come out of some of us attending the past few meetings. I would like to commend and say thank you to Mr. Mackin on his work with all of the students to come up with such a successful plan for March 14th. I think from what I heard from my daughter, the memorial was very powerful. She was one of the students that spoke on behalf of a child that was murdered at Parkland. And I know for her it will create a lasting impression upon her and hopefully upon all the students that participated that day. I would also like to thank and acknowledge Claire Carey, Erica Denler, and Laura Gwynn for their amazing efforts on the show that was produced last weekend. It was such a high-quality musical. The students put in so many hours of their time after school hours and are so committed to the group of kids that are involved in the drama and theater program that I'm amazed by them, and I think they deserve every accolade possible. And finally, I would like to say thank you for the communication this week regarding the incident with the pellet gun that occurred yesterday at the high school. The openness and the follow-up email that came today reassured me that the incident was handled swiftly and in an appropriate manner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
This is new to all of us.
Darlene Garrett.
So Mrs. Patterson, you mentioned, I don't think anybody's name should be brought up here. I agree with that, and students and such. But as taxpayers, there was a bunch of us asking some specific questions regarding policies and procedures. As I think it was Mr. Nornica who corrected us on a policy versus a procedure. And it's been over 12 weeks that we've asked for some policies, which none of our emails have been addressed. None of our discussions at the board meetings have been addressed to these policies. And we were told it would happen within 6 weeks. And, I'd like for you to tell the taxpayers, Mr. Hochreiter, in this room, why it's thought that taxpayers don't have a right to be answered any way, shape, or form that they ask questions. I really would like to understand that as a taxpayer.
I will speak on the board's behalf, that if you have any questions that you would like answered, Mr. Hochreiter can email you. If you had put your email address down there, he will do that. This is not the time or the place to be doing that.
I'm
There are
asking
other-
I'm
there-
asking about policy, just the policies alone.
And,
That was
and
in the
as I
community
said,
email.
if you would please leave your information, we will be in touch with you.
I can promise these stall tactics will not work. Thank you.
It's not a tactic, it's a board procedure.
Can I just sign the list so I can speak to? Michelle Castellino?
I would like to a statement on our code of conduct. Well, first I would like to say I do appreciate that we are increasing our security. I really appreciate that. I know that we've all been speaking about this and we really want it, so thank you very much because I truly appreciate the efforts being made. Hopefully the interviews go quickly and we get that done sooner than later. My comment is about the code of conduct and possible flaws in the code of conduct. Because, how do I come right say this? There was a FOIL request asked of the school district on an incident that had happened. And there is absolutely no documentation on file. No witness statements, no incident reports, no police information, no record of a meeting with principals, with superintendents, no guidance intervention. So my statement is there must be a flaw in the code of conduct if we are not documenting anything at all when it comes to the welfare of a child. So I'm asking the board to re-look at our code of conduct because there's not a single record on file. Since I can't talk about a particular situation, there's not a single piece of paper on file. Not one. So please re-look at our code of conduct that we keep falling back on. Thank you.
Lisa Leach?
I passed, Mr. Hochreiter answered my questions earlier.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going back over that.
Janelle McNeil?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dear board members and administrators, my name is Janelle McNeil. I'm a prior Henna graduate. I have a daughter who graduated last year and a daughter currently in Blue Mountain. I continue to come to these meetings as a concerned parent and taxpayer. First off, I'd like to thank the administration for the improvement in district-wide communications, including recent incidents at the middle school and high school. It is appreciated to receive a direct communication instead of hearing bits and pieces through the grapevine. I also appreciated the communication regarding the upcoming bond vote. However, my one critique would be the lack of communication regarding the bond covering a new turf field. In the correspondence I have seen both by email and posted to the school on Facebook, there is not one mention of a new turf field. I feel, for one, it is time for our taxpayers to step up and invest in the required projects needed to keep this district moving forward. But I think it's necessary to be transparent with your communications to the public. Second, I would like to comment on some recent feedback in the community regarding the issues being discussed at the last few board meetings. For the record, I have no direct issues with the administration or the board. I am here solely to support the right that every parent or employee has the right to voice their concerns if they feel their concerns have not been addressed through the proper channels. Every person that has come up to the podium in the last few board meetings, whether it has been regarding security issues, student issues, or employee issues, are not here as angry people looking to destroy our school's reputation. It's the exact opposite. The reason they are here is expressing concerns is because they care about this school district and the future of this district. We all should care. Every entity has room for improvement. There is nothing wrong with experiencing a flaw in the system and addressing it. Our community shouldn't have to pay the price of unnecessary lawsuits because they are afraid to show up and support the corrections of these inconsistencies. Once again, I'd like to request the district look at its internal and external policies and procedures to ensure they are being adhered to properly and consistently for the benefit of everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Giovanni Rodriguez.
Good evening, my name is Giovanni. I have a couple of questions, and this was missing in action for the last 3 meetings we've had. So I just want to say thank you for bringing this up to the community. So as a taxpayer, I just have a couple of questions. So regarding the correspondence, what's the timeline that you guys respond back? So if I send you an email on Monday, who's going to respond back? Is there a superintendent or the secretary?
To your request?
Yeah, so if it's a
Your
working day.
request, if you put in a request, depending on what the request is, either Mr. Hochreiter or myself will respond to you.
Okay, because we've done that in the past and we haven't had any response.
I have to tell you that anybody that has sent me a request has been answered.
Okay.
I will make you that promise on camera.
All right. thank you.
So,
You are promising on camera.
My second question is,
You are.
I guess as part of this community, we see a lot of, different tactics that the Board of Ed is really going. Some good, some bad. What I'm concerned about is the tactics that you guys use towards the parents regarding unsolved questions that obviously you don't want to confront. We're not going to go away. And second of all, I think that a lot of the things is internal. So if we're not going to be able to get answers via correspondence or answers here, eventually with the state that we're in and in a country, there will be a lot of different social medias that I will be heading to really make a statement for this community, because not only is it a great community and it's a small community that we stick together every season, no matter if it's a sport or event or some type of theater that happens in the school. My main concern is for the future of the kids in FGL and any other elementary school that you guys still don't want to complete. It's the simple of changes that the people in this community want, the taxpayers, okay? You showed beautiful graphs and breakdowns and Excel sheets, but what's really stuck out is that the decline of attendance let me rephrase that. The decline of attending enrollments for this community is declining, but yet we still don't have solutions to improve it via correspondence or any of your agendas. So going forward, I think that you really need to work together with the community via PTA or any other organization that supports the voice of this community to really make a change for the smaller kids. Thank you.
thank you.
That's all received.
Oh, that's it. I'm still waiting. Okay, next we have the superintendent's report. And before we move on, I would like to thank everybody for attempting to stick to the time period and for your comments. And that's it. Superintendent's report.
Number of updates, and I want to comment somewhat on what we heard in terms of some of our visitors wishing to address the board. Normally this is a celebration where I give updates on all the great things happening in our schools, and I will get there, but I do want to talk about a recent incident that took place at the high school. I'm going to read from a statement that was sent out to our community earlier today. Some of you may not have received it. Those of you that have, forgive me for reading something that you probably already heard, but it's important that this gets on the record. Dear Hendrick Hudson community, yesterday an email was sent to all high school parents informing them that a student had brought a pellet gun to school. The email explained that a number of students reported this to school administrators, and after a thorough investigation, the student surrendered the pellet gun. The state police were summoned, and the student was removed from the school. The communication explained that the student would be subject to the district's code of conduct regarding appropriate disciplinary action measures. I'd like to take a moment to expand on the incident of yesterday. Per the district's code of conduct, the student who brought the pellet gun in the school was immediately suspended and will be subject to a superintendent's hearing. Additionally, the state police are handling the criminal aspect of this incident, including the possibility of criminal charges. We also included a link to the code of conduct in this notice. While this entire event is deeply troubling to all of us, I'd like to highlight a few important facts. Numerous high school students did precisely what we as adults repeatedly ask them to do in these situations. If you see something, say something. These students did exactly that, quickly reporting their awareness of the pellet gun to school administrators. The administration acted swiftly and according to protocol, and within a matter of minutes, the student was detained, the pellet gun was recovered, and the police had arrived on campus. After completing their investigation, the police deemed the high school to be safe, and the school day continued without further incident. As you all know, we're living in a world of heightened awareness and understandable fear around the topic of school violence, and I want to make sure that this community knows that our administration, our teachers, and staff take this issue extremely seriously. We do everything possible to keep Hendrick Hudson school community safe and well informed. Not a message I wanted to lead with tonight, but an important one. This was a very unfortunate incident. This was something that was responded to extremely well and extremely professional by our school administration. I was made aware of it almost immediately, but did not need to get involved because of who we have at the high school and how they represented our district in terms of this investigation. It's important to underscore, as many people would like to know more specifics and the who and the what and how and what's going to happen and want names and addresses of kids. And you've heard me and you've heard this board a number of times in the past say that while we may want that information, while we may believe we're entitled to it, that information is protected. All student records are protected under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. It's federal law.
FERPA, right.
FERPA, for those of you who know it as the acronym. FERPA is a federal law that's administered by the Family Policy Compliance Office under the U.S. Department of Education. FERPA applies to all educational agencies and institutions, in our case schools. FERPA prohibits the improper disclosure of personally identifiable information derived from education records. Education records include grades and report cards, they include attendance records, they include medical records, and especially discipline records. So while I'm not going to respond to all of the questions I received personally from folks over the last day and a half, I want to let you know that when we mention the code of conduct or we mention the processes within, that's a legal document. That's a document New York State demands that we have. It's a document that is approved every year. It's a document that is a Bible of sorts for our administration who are here that have to reference it regularly. We don't have the opportunity or the right to make up how we go about it. We don't have the right to make up what discipline procedures are. Those are all dictated by the state, and that there are processes that we have to follow that are outlined by the state. Students, regardless of their act and regardless of whether they're presumed to be innocent or guilty, there is a due process. And that due process includes a superintendent's hearing. Sometimes that includes attorneys, other times it doesn't. Sometimes that includes witnesses, and many times it doesn't. But the process that we have to go through, whether it's for a pellet gun, whether it's for student disruption, or any other sort of violation of the code of conduct, we have to follow that. The law demands it while we go through that process. So I wanted to give a little bit of background to the pellet gun incident as well as some related information. With that, we also heard about the bond vote, and we do have some promotional materials, and certainly we'll take the comments we heard today under advisement. We feel that we did articulate that we were replacing the existing high school field with a all-weather turf. That was part of a number of different promotional materials we have. I've held 4 meetings in the community, 2 with right here at the Hendrick Hudson Free Library as recently as this afternoon, where we had a community member show up. We had a meeting last week where we had 2 community members show up. Today we visited the Buchanan Senior Center that had about 30+ members, and last week or 2 weeks ago we visited with the Verplank seniors that had around 40 or more members. We have our schedule of our information meetings. It's online. Some of the meetings will be part of the PTA meeting, but all are welcome to attend, but those conversations will be driven toward that particular school and recommended upgrades there. But we'll also be back here at the Hendrick Hudson Free Library 3 more times, May 1st at 7 p.m., May 2nd at 10 a.m., and May 10th at 7 p.m. So please reference our website for these meetings. Please come out and be informed so you can learn more about the project and understand exactly what we're asking the public to approve to ride along with our board vote on May 15th. I'll echo some other comments and talk about Mary Poppins. If you were not able to see Mary Poppins, Claire Carey opened every show. You could probably see it on YouTube. She asked everyone to put their phones away, and shortly after the performance began, everyone began taping, because that's hard not to do that when we watch our kids perform. So congratulations to those students. I want to again congratulate the students today who are part of the art show. We have expanded our art show, not just here at the Free Library, but our fantastic art teachers bring some highlights of their student work over to the district office. So if you haven't been to the district office, you'll see a traveling art show over there. Recently, 2 weeks ago, the high school FBLA students participated at the state conference, New York statewide, and we had, from our high school alone, 6 high school students finish in first place in their respective categories, which include sports and entertainment management, entrepreneurship, and accounting. We just finished up our story working with our FBLA advisor, and I was able to interview a couple of these students last Friday, so look for this information to be posted on our website and social media tomorrow. We're very fortunate to offer that program and for those students to perform the way that they did. And with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. Next, we have committee reports, but I think the only committee that has met has been safety committee. Do you want to give an update, or do you feel that?
I think it would be important for people to know that we did meet and discussed some of the safety concerns that the different schools have, and how we intend to address them. And it was a good conversation that we had last meeting. It was. Ranging from how to keep doors locked and what to do when students open them up, and so those concerns are being addressed and being looked at. The teachers do meet with us, and the people who are on the committee listen thoughtfully.
And we have also been at the various PTA meetings, and I believe Thursday night we will be at Furnace Woods PTA. So if anybody has any questions, we will be there together at their PTA meeting. So moving along now. Presentations and discussion. We have first the BOCES budget vote and board election. There are 2 seats currently available at BOCES on their board, and I don't know if everybody had a chance to read the information. We have Catherine Wilburn from Garrison School District. She has been president and vice president of her school board for quite a long time. She's been 8 years on their board, and she has done quite a bit for their school district. We also have Michael Simpkins, who has been on Peekskill School Board since 2002, and he's continued to serve for 17 years on that school board. So with 2 seats open and both of them, could we please take a vote to approve their being nominated to fill the vacancies on the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, and the election will take place on April 24th, 2018. So can I please have a motion to accept them? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And we just need a vote also for the administrative budget.
Right. So can I please have a motion to accept the administrative budget of PNW BOCES?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so with that being done, we are moving into our presentations. And we may do the honors.
So it is time for our academic reports. We have our high school and middle school with us to share their updates on their work in progress taking place in the 2017-18 school year. So let's start with Blue Mountain Middle School and our principal, John Owens.
Good evening, everybody. A couple of years ago, I look back as I went to prepare this executive summary and presentation, look back a couple of years ago and reported to the board that we were working on identifying appropriate diagnostics and then the appropriate remediation for students both in ELA and math. And I'm very proud this evening to bring some folks to tell you just how far we've come on that work. In addition, in that report a couple of years ago, we talked about the connection between at-risk students' social emotional needs and the resulting decline in academic performance, and we've made some great strides there as well. So the first part of the evening, you'll hear about Academic Intervention Service, AIS. I'll speak a little later about our efforts with the social emotional, specifically dialectical behavior therapy, which you'll hear Pete referred to as DBT. The last thing that we're working that's going well now for us, actually, so we had math and English, AIS, dialectical behavior therapy. This summer during Leadership Week, we had a presentation from a number of administrators from a school district in New Jersey. They're talking about teaching and learning, but inevitably when you talk about teaching and learning, homework quickly comes to the top of the conversation. So as a building, we did a lot of work regarding our home learning practices. That's one of the premises that they're affectionately called the Jersey Boys. The administrators from New Jersey presented, you don't work in school, you learn in school, so you don't do homework, you should do home learning. So we've made some real progress there as well, and we'll get to that. So I'd like to introduce Ms. Belle Jefferson. She worked with Dr. Roller extensively as we coordinated our efforts with the diagnostics, utilizing some of the things that the elementary schools are doing. Ms. Belle Jefferson will introduce Ms. Nicole Kelly, who's doing a lot of doing the work in the classroom, and then Mr. Mark Bjornson in ELA. Mr. Bjornson will tell us about math. Ms. Belle Jefferson.
Hello, everyone. I don't really want to read off of the screen, so I'm going to talk more holistically. So, as Mr. Owens said, we started to use iReady about 4 years ago at the middle school. And as we used it, we learned more about the tool. And we started noticing that some students scored lower than grade level when they got the gross assessment. But we realized that that's just a gross measure, let's say, like a large sifter. So what we started to do was look more closely at the data. So for ELA, we started to look at the Woodcock-Johnson screener. We spoke with special education teachers. We spoke with our school psychologist about the data to figure out exactly what the numbers meant. If it said that a student was at a certain grade level, because it doesn't tell the whole story. And what we ended up with was a really targeted AIS service that we are still tweaking and still improving, that we believe is really geared towards getting students the type of help that they need, rather than just putting them in a classroom and saying you're getting extra help. So currently we are using leveled literacy, Fontes and Pinnell, which is also used in the elementary school, and we're using Wilson. And we decide if a student gets one type of intervention versus another type of intervention based on their scores, based on these conversations that we've had with other building level professionals. And the instruction for that type of intervention is given by 3 reading teachers at the, 3 AIS teachers, I should say, at the middle school level. And Mrs. Nicole Kelly is going to tell you a bit about her daily experience with those students.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Because I'm sure people in the audience don't have any idea really what iReady entails. Is it, what exactly are you testing with iReady when you test students?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, iReady is an online, what we call a universal diagnostic. So we give it to every single student in the school 3 times a year. And it looks at students' phonics, so their word letter recognition, and their comprehension. So I'm going to look at the 2 main areas. And it's meant to mirror what is expected from them as New York State students. They also have correlated it to the state tests. And we look to see, based on those results, if the student is at grade level, above grade level, or below grade level when they take that. And it generates a report that we can see that classroom teachers can use to guide their instruction, and it is also used to determine what type of academic intervention service that the students get for ELA. And how they've designed their particular program is that it sort of probes, so it gives some questions that are easier, some questions that are harder, and then it targets those questions for the students, and that's how it determines for both English and math what the grade level equivalency is and what the scaled score is.
So would that then determine what level reading material you would provide for them? Or would you still use the Fontes and Pinnell for that?
We decide to have a student use the Fontes and Pinnell service if they are more below grade level. If it's a student who is on or near to grade level and they're getting help from their classroom teacher, not somebody who's been trained to use Fontes and Pinnell,
Right.
They do use that information in conjunction with trying to support them with that grade level's curriculum.
Okay, thank you.
And it's your turn. My turn.
Click it on the right if you want to change this.
All right.
There you go.
Just to add to what Ms. Jefferson was saying about the iReady Diagnostic 2, so that also provides Lexiles. So all of the teachers have Lexiles on all of the students. So once every kid in the middle school completes the iReady Diagnostic, all of the teachers are supplied with that information, so that is informing instruction. So they're all using the standard Lexile. And then we get a little bit more specific when we get to the Fontes and Pinnell level literacy intervention program. They'll come to myself or Ms. Nardis or Mrs. Vano for basically to bridge a gap. We've identified a gap in, I'll say reading very broadly, and we work to, shrink that gap as much as we possibly can. So we're in year 2, and so far so good. We are doing the best we can to follow the program with fidelity at the middle school to make sure that we are reaping the research benefits. We're using a variety of assessments to enter a student, and a bunch of criteria that we've kind of are still tweaking as we go, right, to exit students. And we have had students successfully exit our program in only now just a little over a year and a half in at the middle school. So we are seeing those students every day in small groups, no bigger than 6. And we are progress monitoring them regularly and hopefully providing that information with parents. in accordance with, AIS regulations and Title I regs as well. And, we'll look at a sample of some student work, but we really think that the students are benefiting most from the embedded scaffolding there. So at each level, they are seeing a lot of the same things, so to speak, in terms of skills and strategies, just at a different level of text as they progress. So we are enjoying that. I'll tell you, at the middle school, it's not always an easy sell, especially for, what I like to call my 13 and 14-year-old boys who are like, I don't like to read. We get it, buddy, I know. But we work really hard with the tools that we have to earn their buy-in, and I think we've seen the most success with those kids because of the variety of genres. The texts are engaging, and for the most part, they're short. So we are flipping a text probably every 2 to 3 days tops. So that is, I think, an advantage of the program, opposed to burdening readers, especially who are struggling, and then giving them more and more to read, or more and more things they feel like they can't read or they don't want to read. So that, I think, is really a benefit. I think the program itself encourages self-monitoring, which is huge, especially for our middle schoolers. They are not only buying into the program, but they know exactly how they're doing in accordance with that program. And that text level gradient at all times. They know their own strengths and weaknesses, and so they know what they need to continue to work on. And I feel very proud of them when they are able to articulate that and say, hold on, Mrs. Kelly, that's not working for me, can we go back to this? Or, I missed that entirely. That's growth in and of itself. So, like I said, we're still working, but so far so good. I think the LLI program is a good fit because of the writing aspects to the texts. The word study and vocab are also helpful. Going back to the iReady diagnostic from earlier, kids who are in LLI don't really have phoneme or phonemic awareness needs because they've kind of tested out of that. But vocab, inferencing, comprehension strategies in general, like main idea, things like that, are the areas that they really seem to need the most. So, of course, there's no one size fits all. I wish there was a quick Band-Aid that kind of just fixed everything. And while I'm not saying that this is it, it is working for us right now. And so we figured we'll just share, that's going to be so hard for you to see, sorry. But just a quick example of a student who was slated for LLI at the end of 6th grade. And this is a current 8th grader who entered the program last September as a 7th grader, completed a full year last year, and then exited the program in, the end of the 2nd quarter this year, so really early February. Began at an instructional level S in the LLI program, which is, a solid 2 or more years below grade level at that point in time. And if you notice from the instructional levels in October of 2016, right, in terms of accuracy, we're talking about the number of errors they're making while reading. Comprehension is a 5 out of 9, not making many self-corrections, not noticing their own errors, so to speak. So issues with, thank you, with fluency and things like that. And then as time progresses, as they get more familiar with how the program works and the texts, and obviously seeing all of this stuff, you see growth. And it's not always the most consistent growth, but growth nonetheless. And when we're talking about a BAS here, we're talking about a benchmark assessment system, which is also part of the Fontes and Pinella program. And so we're using that 3 times a year in addition to that 5-week progress monitoring that we're sending home. So that student made remarkable progress, going from an instructional level S to an instructional level Z in really fewer than 18 months. So, like I said, it's not a magic wand. I kind of wish I had one, but we'll keep working with this until we find one. So far, so good. Questions about LLI?
Have you been able to see significant improvement then overall? And how is their improvement? I understand here it's being translated, but what about to their everyday reading within the classroom and other areas besides just reading?
Yes, and so I think some of the best feedback that we've gotten from colleagues so far, and I'll go back on my English teacher friends, but they will say, hey, so-and-so was struggling with this book, can we find an alternative? Or,
Right.
can we find something that's more appropriate? So we can do that. Also allows for tons of choice in the English classroom too, which is huge. But I think in addition to that, you'll see them physically using strategies. And that in and of itself is a win. So,
That's wonderful.
yeah,
Yes.
so whether they just have a pocket full of fluorescent, index cards or Post-it notes, and they don't want anybody to see it, of course, but they can make that magic happen. So yeah, there is definitely some translation to their academics.
Fine,
Absolutely.
thank you.
I think that's, it's down there too. This particular student exited the program at the end of the second quarter. Thank you. With an 88 GPA, and then just recently finished the third quarter with an 86 GPA, and that's without any of the sports in place. So I felt pretty darn good about that. That's it. Thank you. No problems. Thanks.
In addition,
Jump in before you go on, Anisia, to say that it really has been a privilege working with the middle school team. Anisia, John, Nicole, Joanne Dano, indirectly Kelly Rudick as a super diagnostician, and the guidance counselors as well, to really put this in place. And we have seen our kids blossom at the middle school that were floundering, so it's always very rewarding to see that progress, but I think really it's due largely to the dedication of the teachers that are working with them every day and that refused to give up. They kept drilling down in the data to find out where the problem was and then figure out how to address it. So a great team. Thank you so much.
And that is more than true, because you can have the best programs, but if you don't have the best teachers implementing them, it's not going to work. So thank you as well.
thank you for taking that. The other thing I wanted to point out was we talked about the academic gains. When we looked at data, especially the class of last year, when we looked at the disciplinary data for some of these students who had been regular visitors, we stopped seeing when they entered this program, or we saw, once more. Because there definitely is a correlation between I'm in class, I'm not really able to follow, and somebody acting out so that they can be removed from that setting, and being able to get this type of instruction gave them confidence and was able to help them to help themselves. And just to clarify for anybody who looks at this on recording, when we talk about a reading program, we're not saying that they can't physically read words. We're really talking at the middle school level about students who have difficulty comprehending texts at a certain level. And we really want to close those gaps so that when they do get to high school and they are reading texts that are really sophisticated, that they have the skills to navigate them independently. So that's what we're trying to do with the reading program. On to the math. So, some of this is the same in that they take that universal screener, the iReady screener that we talked about, and it looks at different areas of student proficiency. And again, we sat around the table, after we looked at the reading, we started pushing towards the math. And one of the things that I had noticed when I was at the high school and also in the middle school, you have some students who really still are having difficulty with what you would consider to be basic math skills. And we wanted to figure out, well, what were these skills that they were lacking? Because in my mind, because I always struggled in math, I'm an ELA person, I felt it was pretty cruel to say, here you are, do 6th or 7th or 8th grade math, but there are some areas that you didn't quite grasp at an earlier age that you can't get, but we're telling you to keep going anywhere. So we really wanted to isolate those skills so that those students would be able to close those gaps and then flourish in their current grade level. So that's what we started to do this year. And we also do have meetings with our AIS teachers. So the reading teachers, Mr. Bjornson, we meet every couple of weeks to review the data, to talk about things that we need to change, things that we need to do for next year, things that we need to change for the current year. So I would like to have Mr. Bjornson come up to talk in more detail about what we're doing this year, the first year that we have started this type of math intervention at the middle school.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we're doing at the middle school math. We're in our first year of this program, and if I can get the right button, oh, it's already there. Thank you. The program is similar to what Nicole Kelly and Joanne Vanna are doing, where we've identified students who are having some difficulties in math, in this case, and then try to get a little more specific as to where exactly those difficulties are. We use the iReady as a pre-screener to determine candidates for this program. We also will use their previous math grades and teacher guidance and teacher and guidance recommendations for that program. Okay. Once we've identified candidates, we use a diagnostic program called KeyMath. In KeyMath, there's 5 categories: numeration, addition, subtraction, multiplication and division, problem solving, foundations of problem solving, and applied problem solving. The numeration is basically number sense, and that's a visual and oral examination. The second 2, the addition, subtraction, multiplication, are actually pencil and paper evaluations. With the evaluator watching them do the work, it becomes a key component over just having them do that and check it later. The foundations of problem solving section deals with problem solving techniques, like what method might you use to solve this problem, not actually solving problems. That also is a visual and spoken exam. And then the applied problem solving is they're given pictures and problems, and then they are allowed to use paper, pencil, and calculators to solve those problems. In all these categories, they start with relatively simple problems, and they gain in difficulty until we reach a point where they really can't do the problems anymore. At least they get to a point where they can't do 4 problems in a row. This leads to hard data with an actual score and grade level and in percentile rankings. But just back one, I'm sorry. What's also really important are the notes that are made by the evaluator. Last year, Mr. Hirsch was the evaluator that screened students, and the notes that he's made in the margins as he's recording the results are really, really critical, and I think I can show you that in an upcoming slide here. They're assessed before they start the program. We did an assessment in December through January, and we'll assess again at the end of the year. We alternate between forms of the test that are parallel so they don't get the exact same questions each time. So, sample 1. This is a 7th grade student, and you can see their grade equivalencies in this column. 5th grade, middle of 4th grade, really quite high in multiplication and division, and then a bit lower in the foundations, and a middle of 3rd grade in the applied problem solving. These are the results after 3 months in the program. And you can see there is growth in all of them. And I highlighted this one not because it makes me look like the best educator in the world, but for another reason. When you look at Mr. Hirsch's notes leading to that 4.5, you can see that the issue was really that the person hadn't simplified fractions, in which case they get marked incorrect. And if you get 4 in a row incorrect, your testing has stopped. So my suspicion is that it wasn't all the wonderful things that I did that brought them from the middle of 4th grade to 10th grade, but rather that 4th grade level was suppressed because they simply didn't simplify those fractions. This is an 8th grade student, and you can see we also had really pretty tremendous growth. And again, the notes that are important is this person tried so hard when they were working with me. When they're first screened, most kids take an hour to an hour and a half to take all 5 sections. This person worked on this with me in front of them for about 4 hours. I mean, really showing everything that they could do. Because they're above average percentile rank-wise in all categories, that person was moved out of the program in early January and is, I believe her average now in math is 87. The final example again, we see growth. And I highlighted this one to show that I am the worst teacher in the world. That they went from the middle of 8th grade to early 5th grade level. From the 63rd percentile to the 16th percentile. Again, though, if you look at the notes, besides the hard data, this person also in that section didn't simplify fractions. They were getting correct answers, simply didn't simplify, so it has to be marked incorrect. And in this case, that's the score that they earned that has to be written down. But I let this person proceed past those problems. And if they had simplified those, this is really more about, it would have been about the middle of 8th grade stayed about the same. And the importance of that is when you see that number, and if the students or their parents see the number, they don't panic and think, what's happened with this regression? And you can explain simply, you can simplify some fractions. Do something. So what I wanted to show with the data is it's been very important to indicate what level they're at and that we are seeing growth. And at the same time, we need to take all this with a grain of salt and realize those hard numbers don't tell it.
So I'm going to jump in here one more time and say that I am delighted that Mark has taken this on for us. Math has always been the core stepsister to ELA, even though I, like my colleagues, I'm an ELA person. So we're thrilled that we have this going at middle school, and it's very interesting that Marcia is sitting next to Mark, because Marcia has been telling me it's fractions for a long time, and so that's where the data has pointed. And what we really need to do is model what we've done in ELA and have that vertical articulation. So I am very much looking forward to looking at Mark's findings and then having him help us backtrack into the elementary program so that we can strengthen the problems that we're seeing at K-5 and send them stronger students, and then as they work their magic, send even stronger students to the high school. So it's a long time coming, but math is finally getting its due. We're about to launch an AIS math program at K-5 as well. So happy days are here again. Thank you very much, Mark.
I have a question. So when you do this, who teaches this? Is it all computer-based? Is it kid? That's what I want to know.
With the math?
Yes.
Very little computer-based.
Okay.
And we're drawing pictures, cutting out shapes. Some computer work I'll use. There's a program that's associated with the key math diagnostics that has lessons in it. We'll use some of those lessons, but that more supplements what I'm doing. We're doing a lot of hands-on work, looking at, say, fractional parts, place values, not just memorizing place values, but looking at them with blocks and stuff, that sort of thing.
Okay. Fractions, I still don't know them as seen.
All right, switching gears, as I had alluded to before, the board had talked about social emotional issues for our students. Again, at a summer leadership week, we had Alec Miller, who is a consultant from CBC, which is Cognitive Behavior Consultants. So these summer leadership weeks, you have the choir gets together to talk about what we can do to even do better work with our students. Mr. Miller is a very dynamic presenter, and we had already been exposed to CBC specifically, but also to DBT, dialectical behavior therapy. Dr. Brodsky, our school psychologist, had been working with previous PBS directors to try to bring DBT into the district, and everything kind of fell together. So a number of students screened by, recommended by faculty, screened by the people doing this work. Parents were involved. We have 22 students in 3 groups. They're grouped by grade levels, and they each have 2 co-leaders. Over half of these students receive additional individual counseling from one of the co-leaders. So many of these students already had counseling on their IEP, their individualized educational profile, so they are now meeting with that social worker or psychologist in a one-to-one setting, but doing it based upon the DBT. It's our second year. It is, again, our psychologist, 2 social workers, and the district's behavior specialist. The team itself meets once a week, which is huge because they debrief and support each other. Bi-weekly, a consultant from CBC joins the team meeting, which is also crucial, so I appreciate the board's support for this, because that outside consultant really asks some hard questions and forces the practitioners to work together and critique each other's work. The work itself, they work off of the CBC manual. They all completed a group on mindfulness, trying to teach these children to be aware of what they're thinking and how they're feeling and how they're acting under certain conditions. They have future modules, distress tolerance and regulation of placidity relationships. The difference between DBT and past school-based counseling is that school-based counseling in the past was, and even outside counseling people still take advantage of today, it's sort of open-ended and never-ending, and more kind of reactive to what things are happening. This is very much skills-based, so this is teaching them specific things to do when specific things happen to them. And the group activities are designed to be generalized throughout the school day and also at home. Any questions on that?
Can you give an example of, a little bit more concrete example of how this works?
Okay, so for example, mindfulness, some of the physical triggers or physiological things that happen with students. Do you feel yourself short of breath? Do you feel yourself turning red? That's been a problem I've had throughout the years for different reasons. If I turn red, you notice. So those sorts of things. Is your hand shaking? That's the adrenaline. You know, students don't know why. So those sorts of triggers for a situation, and then get them to think through what they can do. Then those things, and a lot of these are sort of age-old. They've been validated by science, but a cold drink of water, splashing cold water on your face, things your great-grandma told you to do. But actually that shock of the cold water sort of snaps you out of that moment that you're in and gives you a chance to sort of recalibrate and move on. So, and then they can talk about in these small groups, they'll do, real true scenarios, things that have happened to students, or they'll have scenarios that they act out or discuss. Really pretty powerful and pretty interesting. The idea in the future is to expand, even at the very least, the knowledge base of the faculty as to what they're doing in those groups. A lot of these techniques are things that counselors, school counselors, administrators, we kind of do accidentally on purpose. We figured it out over the years. But the goal in the future is to coordinate even more exactly what's happening in these sessions so that we can even use the same vocabulary, which does work. We've had students from DBT outside, Four Winds or other therapy, and then when they have an issue and they go to see one of our social workers, they speak the DBT language, which shortcuts a whole lot of things. They go right to how do you feel and what are your, what are some of your coping strategies? And the kid will, oh, I have some of those. I learned them outside, so let's apply them. Okay? So moving on, our third initiative that's going well, as I said before, we had a presentation from some gentlemen from New Jersey. They were talking about a variety of issues that had to do with teaching and learning, and a lot of it came from homework. When we talk at Committee of Special Education meetings, we have town halls with the teams, parent meetings, homework comes up over and over again. In the town halls, the kids complain, why do we have to have it on weekends, why is there so much? Committee of Special Education meetings, we spend a disproportionate amount of time talking about homework and the influence on the grades and how we have to modify and address things largely because of homework. It was way overdue as a society, let alone school district, to really start to look at these things. From the gentleman from New Jersey, we now have we met with, we surveyed parents, we surveyed students, we met with teams. We've come to a general level of consensus, and that consensus includes when you give a homework, do the students understand the objective? Does it foster student choice or require students to ask questions? And can I efficiently and effectively provide feedback on the work? Now, many teachers, most I would say, we're already doing this. Your typical math teacher gives work. The goal is to practice what you learned that day. The third one, they're giving feedback. They're going over it the next day. Math is typically one of the quickest turnaround time. The thing for the math teachers to really look at is, are you getting any choice? Can you stop sooner rather than later? Is quality more important than quantity? Can you write down why you stopped, why you couldn't do the next step in the problem, rather than just giving up or not handing it in? Social studies teachers had already turned the corner on this as well. Instead of giving the section review questions where the student goes to the glossary and copies the definitions and then looks through the text for the bold print to get the answer to the section review questions, now they're asked to make an observation, make a comparison, and you know, a comparison to something else they learned. So now even a student that didn't do the homework is able on the fly in class to ask a question or to make a comparison to something else. We got down to nuts and bolts. These are things that research has been telling us for years, so now we've codified it. 10 minutes per grade level, so we're talking 60 minutes in 6th grade, 70, 80, and so forth. Limited coordinated weekend and vacation assignments. We talk about coordinated because if a team of teachers do not speak with each other and they all give the over the break assignment or the over the weekend assignment, then the students wind up having a lot. Students should be able to complete assignments independently, and this includes students with IEPs, students who don't, English is not their first language, me as well, and also considering the availability of technology. Assignments are not to require purchases. And some of this is huge. I mean, some parents have spent a lot of money over the years with diorama supplies and other things, and it becomes, it starts to delineate between who can afford to buy certain things and who cannot. And very importantly, we had turned the corner on this quite some time ago, but we're not grading and raising or lowering grades based on supplies and permission slip signatures and all that. They can still check, and they want you, the parent, to see that they saw a test grade, but they're not giving or losing credit for having done so. This was huge. Some districts have gone to the point where homework does not count at all. Some of our Blue Mountain teachers have gotten to that point years ago on their own, to the point where on the portal it doesn't say homework anywhere. 8th grade English teachers, I use an example. If they have a writing assignment, there's a graphic organizer, it's in the portal, and it needs to be done. But it's not listed as homework. It was given in class, they started in class, finish it at home, finish it in school, finish. The point is to get it done. So it wasn't a stretch for many of our teachers to not count homework, and then there was a limit for some that it shouldn't count more than 10%. And it shouldn't hurt their final grade. So a student, this was the exact presentation I gave to the faculty. So a student who's passing your class, 65, just barely, but does no homework, he still receives a 65. He's meeting the standards, all right? Barely perhaps, but he's meeting the standards. He shouldn't be penalized because he didn't do the homework and was still able to meet the standards. On the other hand, a student with the 65% average who does everything you ever asked them to do outside of school, then he gets into the additional 10 points. Any question about home learning and so forth?
We're allowed to disagree with that, right?
Yeah.
Just saying.
The homework seems
I have
really
issues. How do you,
Because if they did their homework, maybe their average would be higher than a 65.
Yeah.
I can't tell exactly what you all think right now. There's a good chance that you might not agree here
So they
either.
did homework. Well, math is different.
I just wonder, like, how a kid, who's got sports, wants to spend a little time with family, and has to do all that homework, how they're ever going to get any sleep.
Well, that's
That's my concern.
have
That's
high
my greater
schoolers too.
concern is if they haven't established the discipline to set that hour aside or half hour or whatever it is to get that done and time management, I mean, a half hour and make it progressive. When they get to the high school and they get some of these classes, I've been in this home, they get slammed. They don't know, and they're just. I mean, it makes the transition much more difficult.
We've been torturing public education secondary students for a long time. When you go to college and you're taking your 5 classes and you have your 15 credits for the quarter, you have lots and lots of downtime to do lots and lots of work. To your point, sir, that's exactly a point we had made years ago. And I also make it to parents when they come in too. There's a level of homework that needs to be completed, but if you're on a travel team and getting your bar mitzvah and doing something else all at the same time, something has to give. So the limits of time are generally accepted or proposed, and the idea here is that we have them 7 hours a day, and we want them to do the work they need to do in school. And the home learning has a place and a purpose, but it shouldn't be making or breaking students. Honestly, it shouldn't be failing students or passing students that aren't meeting standards.
If teachers don't want to do this, do they have to?
This was consensus that the school reached. faculty reach.
So they all have to do this? I mean, like I said,
Well,
my
which part of
concern
this?
is that I worry that they're not prepared for high school. If they think
college.
well,
It's called
it's
time
like first
management,
things
too.
first. But I mean, they're going to, they get home from school at 3 o'clock, and a lot of kids, let's be real, a lot of them aren't doing sports, and they're just, they're playing,
What's that new game?
whatever the heck they're doing. But I mean,
Fortnite.
I think,
Fortnite.
and I'm not saying it's that,
And they come in
an
exhausted.
alternative, but I just absolutely believe that when they go to 9th grade, it's like, they're gonna be just like, oh my God. They established their patterns and they didn't establish those time management skills.
I totally hear you and
That's
agree.
my concern.
I watched two colleagues argue. The one had a student in the high school. This is a different district, and the two teachers were talking. And the one was upset that the other one's child hadn't done their calculus homework. And they said, well, she was up till 2 in the morning doing that AP English homework. So I would say what's happening is true, potentially, but it needs to be fixed, and not that it trickles down, that we torture kids more at younger ages, and that's what we're trying to.
I agree with that, there's probably a lot, but again, there's probably, the reality is, they probably had quite a while to do that AP, like, English homework, and they didn't, again, time management, maybe they need to carve out like a day or two before, or the weekend before. Or, frankly, it's miserable, but that's what they're gonna wind up with in college. And again, it all has to, I'm sorry, I know I sound like a crone here, but I believe that students need to determine that time management, and it's a life skill, and it's gonna follow them forever.
This is not done in a vacuum.
I'm
There's
aware.
a lot of research that shows, and
it's
if you're a high school varsity athlete who also takes a couple AP classes, is absolutely overwhelmed and absolutely staying up way later than they should on a regular basis. So that I would argue that that's wrong, and that we should fix it. And again, I maintain that when you get to college and you're taking a few classes, not a few, you're taking a regular load, but it's 5 classes per semester. You have 24 hours a day for the 5 classes. I mean, kids don't have classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. There's a lot more time to get work done in college.
I'd like to argue that the child who did not do the homework did get penalized by getting a 65 in their class because they weren't doing the practice work.
Well, it's not that they get to not do it.
I mean, it's right. I mean, let's assume that this child, you said this person was not handing in their homework, so they're not going to get penalized any lower than 65. And in a lot of college classes, if you do your tests and you do your final, that's your grade. They don't care whether you did your homework or not.
Well, I'm going to get to, there's a whole.
But it's that reinforcement that they've missed, too.
The way you practice, the way you play.
There are
The way you practice
significant
is the way
issues
you
with
play.
grading and scheduling that I'm going to get to shortly, perhaps. Shall I go on?
You can go on.
So this is what's happening. 2 priorities that we have going forward. A couple things are happening that involves everything that we've said tonight. When you have the home learning and grading question coming into play, we start to have things that bump into each other. So going back to Mr. Bjornson's AAS classes, we have students that we've identified as being multiple grade levels below where they should be in the 7th grade math class. So is it appropriate, and we decided, spoiler alert, we decided it was not appropriate to give that student a failing grade in the first quarter of 7th or 8th grade math after we told them and their parents that they're 2, 3, 4 grade levels below. So they did not receive a grade. Now, there was consensus reached upon that when students were able to get themselves together. We've already had students work their way out. Some students had a C average in their 7th grade math class. They certainly got their C, but we weren't starting the school year off with Fs for students that we had identified ourselves as being multiple grade levels below. That quickly bumps into ELA, social studies, and science, because now we have kids reading multiple grade levels below, but we're still giving them grades in social studies, science, and English, largely based upon reading. So one of the things we have to work on is a more appropriate way to assess students. And everybody in the room is used to it because that's basically what we do for elementary. We just stop at the end of 5th grade. So 5th grade, you have a 2 in your ability to add or subtract. You have all these other student skills that you maybe really, get outstanding and plays well with others and other things like that. But individual standards, you get a specific grade. And as Mr. Bjornson showed, you can be really good at one and really poor at the other. That tells a parent and the next teacher and everybody else something. To give a sixth grader an 82, a 72, or a 92 in sixth grade math, ELA, fill in the blank subject, doesn't tell anybody much of anything. So that's something we're struggling with. In addition, what's happening, as we meet the needs of our students, we're doing it, the classes that Ms. Kelly and Mr. Bjornson do are 40 minutes a day, every day. Well, there's only 9 periods in the day, so when you give a student that kind of intervention, or the DBT groups are meeting also for 40 minutes, well, now something has to give. Often, two different areas. One is unified arts, so some students that would enjoy would be best at the hands-on activities, and by the way, often they find the most interesting, health, technology, things like that, the most real-world classes we give. They're now not able to take them because they're receiving this level of AIS. Then, on top of that, we have the supplement, which is a structured study hall, and we have content support, which is, again, a comeback period to give kids help. But again, if you're in AIS and or DBT, and there are a number of students who are in both, now you can't have your supplement or your content support. This circles back to teachers, especially special educators, who are trying to get the kids and float them up to the passing grade. So now that we're literally having discussions, debates about the students should not miss supplements so they can go to LLI. And the teachers catch themselves like, I know he's reading 2 grade levels below, but he really has to finish his essay. It's like, yeah, I know. But we have to start making some, really looking at the traditional schedule, which precludes us from doing what kids need, and do something different. And the same thing with grading. We need to find a way to give the kid who's multiple grade levels below an appropriate report card, not saying that he's an F. So those are some things we're working on.
But can't you revise the report card? Because I know when we did, back when I was teaching, we broke down specific skill areas and kind of graded on each particular skill that they were supposed to have mastered within a particular grade level. Is there any way that would, to me, that would make much more sense for a child and a parent to be able to read a report card and know that this is where your child still needs work done to be able to reach grade level. And, a report card is supposed to be reporting on, a child, and really, it would be much more authentic.
No, we have discussed that, we agree. So the basic idea is, yes, we understand and agree with that. Ms. Kelly happened to be in a room. We brought up the Hendrick Hudson Elementary report card, which was very extensive. So that is the idea. Now, the key difference, and it's logistical, and it's not insurmountable, but it's a big one, is if you have 20-something students in your 5th grade classroom, that's different than the 6th grade teacher that has 100 students to do that same level of reporting. But that doesn't mean it's impossible, and we can't look to see if there's something in between to bridge that gap. But you're absolutely right. It would tell a parent their student skills are excellent, but they're still at a 2. And we may even have to do the thing the New York State requires a number of grades, so we might have to transfer those 2s, 3s, and 4s into a % grade for reporting purposes, but at least parents would know. He's a 2 in multiplication. I can do flashcards and fix that. He's a 4 in problem solving. That's great. And identify the areas of weakness and address them.
John, Mr. Jones, I do have another question. How do kids just keep getting moved on?
I would like to know that.
That's what I was How do kids just keep getting moved on? If we make it to 8th grade and we're still performing at 3rd grade?
Well,
so what happened before?
It's the history of public school education in the United States of
America.
America.
Stop. That's what said it.
I once had an interview and they asked me what my ideal school looked like, and it didn't have anything to do with jetpacks and smartboards. It was basically that you start where you start and you progress at your rate. Now, we're not close to having that happen, but it's also not a ridiculous fantasy. If you accelerate, you could have a 7-year-old with a 9-year-old in math, and then vice versa in ELA, because the 7-year-old is way better at math. And by the way, the more we learn about kids, there are many students like that. Their strengths and weaknesses are very, coordinated. So instead of trying to do the thing we do, which is the heterogeneous grouping, and the 4 teachers are teaching to kids that are 3 grade levels below in reading, so you have a 7th grade teacher teaching a kid who's on 3rd or 4th grade reading level, and another one who's on 11th, and we're trying to maintain interest and engagement in all the students. So
which kind of means that, not just here, that we're not meeting the needs of every kid. Of course. Because I agree with you. I agree, we do school wrong, but that's philosophical, right?
Right. But it's pretty well established and agreed upon. It should just be something that we should be able to move forward and not keep doing the same thing we did since the Industrial Revolution began, and we wanted people to sit in rows and he trained them to respond to bells.
So again, my question is, why do we move a first grader on or whatever when they can't read yet, or they can't, or a sixth grader, or an eighth grader?
Right. But as an educator, you understand, or you've seen it happen.
No, I'm in high school. They fail when they fail.
Okay, that's a good point. Too.
I'm elementary.
Retention
Sometimes you don't have choice.
has been shown not to be the magic answer, especially when you're not doing it as a system. If the system moved kids at their pace, it wouldn't be a problem. But the system puts first graders at this age, and then the second graders go to that age. So the kid who's behind, you'd have to retain them. In public school education, if you're retained once, that's rare. Once is very rare. No way you're going to be retained multiple times. So if you didn't get it between first and second grade, they're not going to retain you again, and our system's not built, and people aren't used to having somebody 2 years older in the classroom. People go, oh, he's 14, he shouldn't be here. So the system's definitely dented. So we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep trying to fix the schedule. We're going to keep trying to address grading so that we can help kids who need help. And the DBT does the same thing with the social emotional. There was one anecdotal story, an 8th grader diagnosed with the reading deficiencies as an 8th grader. No way did he want to go into Miss Kelly's LLI class. He made such progress so fast that when he placed out, he didn't want to leave. And he was one of the anecdotal studies where his discipline issues went way down because he's so frustrated. Another anecdotal thing was Miss Kelly was a fantastic ELA teacher, 5 classes a day, 7th grade English. Some of the kids that she now has for LLI or that she diagnosed, she had as an English teacher. So when she looked at the data, she's like, oh my God, that's what he was doing. So every time it came time to show his reading skills or whatever, he went to the bathroom, he threw a pencil at somebody. There were all these coping strategies that became very obvious in hindsight when we realized really what the deficiencies were. To the point where you can pinpoint it, where some English assignments were more difficult than others. So, as I said, we're going to keep working to try to give every single kid what they need and try to make the system bend toward the kids instead of the kids having to bend or break under the system.
Excellent.
Any last parting?
Flowers?
Get out.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we are moving to the high school report. Mr. Mackin.
Good evening, everyone. John, thank you for going very long tonight. I will definitely not be finishing my homework this evening. Appreciate that. I want to say just a couple of things. First, I thank you to the students and teachers for the wonderful artwork. It's always a wonderful meeting to come to and see all the wonderful artwork. I always say that no matter how hard we try to be a science and technology school, we really are an arts school. We have so much talent, and I think it's something to be proud of. It's something that we do extremely well, and that only helps us in the other areas. All the research shows that. I'm going to walk you through our academic report. I will not be talking about homework, thank you.
Well, you better start.
But I will say that some of this did emanate from a conference that John and I went to, and I do agree with many of the things he's talking about. I think there's a balance that needs to be established in education, and what we heard from the board reacting to some of the things that the middle school are doing, especially around homework, and Marcia's in the audience too, we talk about this all the time. I think as parents we do our kids a disservice when we overload them with taking courses or pressuring them to do certain things. I think it's a major flaw in what we do. So when kids don't have time to do homework because they have 6 APs on their calendar and they have travel soccer and club soccer and baseball and hockey and they're dancing and doing other things, I think it's a failure, and I'm one of those parents. It's something that we have to look at as a community and say, are we going to allow students to take 6 AP classes in their junior and senior year? Is there a benefit? Should we be looking out, looking at different things?
Homework's an easy target, it's an emotional topic, and it's an easy one to kind of create sides. But I look at it differently. I think it's about balance. I think there needs to be a balance of home learning and a balance of how kids look at their education with their parents and the selections that they make. So I will move on now, but I do support John, and I was impressed with the work that they're doing at the middle school. And hopefully we'll see the benefits of that very shortly, so thank you. If we can move to the first slide. A lot of the work in this year emanated from our leadership retreat over the summer, and I think it was some of the best work that I've been involved with in recent years. It really was a chance for us to get together with our, and it depended on the building. Some buildings had people sign up and want to participate, but at the high school level, we had a chance to pull our instructional leaders together and really talk about the culture of leadership and collaboration. You always hear about wanting to develop teacher leaders, wanting to develop leadership capacity in students as well. And in order to do that, we had to come to some common ground about roles and how we were going to conduct meetings. And a lot of the conversations focused around that. And anybody in education knows that culture of a building is probably the most difficult thing to change because of things that we've done forever and ever, like homework or bells or whatever. And what this leadership retreat allowed us to do is really look at ourselves as leaders, really start to say, listen, we got to start listening to each other a little better. We need to start empowering our leaders and allowing them to have the voice that they need to have to better student learning. So a lot of that work was done over the summer and led into the year, and our culture of leadership and collaboration really started with our leadership, what we call our principals cabinet, and we started to look at how we utilize meeting time, how to make it the most effective, how to focus it on student learning and not on toilet paper and paper towels and bathrooms that are dirty. Those are operational things that can be handled in different ways. But to really use our time as professional educators to effectively plan on how we're going to improve the building and student learning. And what that allowed us to do is to identify some areas of objective, and that was the culture of the building. Do we have safe places for people to study and be, whether you're a staff member or not? And that's really been a tremendous amount of our work this year. We have teachers really stepping out. I was really proud. One day I happened upon the group of our leaders. They've been, unbeknownst to me, they had decided they wanted to start meeting as a group, earlier in the day. So they were actually meeting before our initial meeting. They're meeting with me to kind of plan together. And that was a really proud moment. They were taking a leadership role and planning and making sure. And it's something they've done, I'm sure, for a long time. But it was really, I think, a result of us all having a voice over the summer. Initiatives going well. Again, it's always hard to identify three. These are three themes. Student opportunity. The high school continues, I think, to be a place where our students can broaden their horizons, try different things. And even in spite of some of our budgetary constraints and concerns that we have coming down the pike, we still are growing and trying new things. Particularly, our Project Lead the Way continues to grow. We added computer science last year. We're adding another course that we'll be looking at, a cybersecurity course that is being piloted this year. And these really seem to be interesting to students in those areas. But we're also continue to look at the very core classes like mathematics, and we a few years ago looked at a 3 and 2 program to enable our students that maybe weren't accelerated in middle school to be able to have a chance to accelerate in the high school and reach calculus. And I will say that program has been very successful this year. We have 30 students in that program, and all, I believe, maybe one are moving on to next year, the second part of that. To that course, and that will enable those students, even though they weren't accelerated, to reach Calculus AB in their senior year. And it's been very successful, and that's due to the hard work of our math teachers. So when we talk about student opportunity, it's not always about just adding, it's about looking at programs that maybe not are working so well and then saying, there's different ways that we can do it, or can we reallocate staffing and resources. And I think that's what we've done. So student opportunity continues to be not so much an initiative, but something that we really can hang our hat on at Hendrick Hudson, because if you look at our course offerings, you look at the programs we have, I think they're among the best in the county. Particularly this year, we were recognized as a Project Lead the Way Distinguished School. It's an award that only 340 other schools have received statewide and nationwide, I believe. So, and it really had a lot to do with how our students fared on end of the course exams, and they did really well. So we're very proud of that, and we continue to be a model. Out of these are the words out of Project Lead the Way's mouth. They are sending people to us as a model program for Project Lead the Way. For Project Lead the Way. So we're really happy about that. Around culture, you see the top one is inclusiveness. This is going on my 17th year. Next September will start my 17th year as an administrator in the Hendrick Hudson School District. It's changed quite a bit. But when you walk around the high school and you look at the diversity of programs, what strikes me, and really warms my heart is that, students are starting to understand that it's everybody's school. And regardless of the program that you're in, regardless of the type of learner you are, the type of student you are, that you're a student at Hendrick Hudson. You're a sailor, and you are to be respected that way. That's not to say that there aren't incidents where students have issues, but I think in general there is a sense of inclusiveness. We have many, many different programs ranging from special ed programs right up into our AP programs, and I think that speaks to the work that our leaders done and the inclusiveness theme that we have in our building. So I think that continues to be a strength. We're in year 2 of our sailor program, which is our formerly ABC in the lower grades. And that is a classic example of, and a shining star of our inclusiveness of all students. But we also have other programs like the Academy, which has almost 50 students in it that are not your typical learners, and they're in a different environment. And we really do a nice job with that as a district, and we wouldn't be able to do that without the support of the board. It's really something to see growth. And I think that when we're talking about Mark and his AIS, we talk about people are asking computer program this. The real key there was observation.
I was glad it wasn't.
It was observation. Where he learned the most was when he was watching students. So when you see students growing, or you see them doing things to improve their learning, it's really something. And those kids, again, I know John had them, most of them in his school. We have some kids that are working now outside. We have one student that was in the video. He actually works in a pizza place in Mayovac, and it's a paid position. And these are critical things for these students as they start to get ready to move and leave us. So that's just one of many programs that are really great at the high school, and have been a compilation of work from K through 12. 2 priorities. Again, we're looking at literacy as well. Speaking with the middle school last year, we had a number of students still with all their work coming up and had some deficiencies. And the high school had never had, we dabbled with reading teacher, having a reading teacher. We had one every little once in a while here and there, but never really had a full-time teacher. And in speaking with some of my administrative colleagues, we were able to they made some concessions and were able to give me the staffing that I needed. So I wouldn't have had the reading teacher if it wasn't for some concessions and efficiencies that Donna Teresi made and other people on the administrative staff to make sure that we had. And I think that's important to note because we're a team, and it's very easy to kind of hoard staff and say, I need that. But when there's a need, we do work together. We're not always fighting for resources. So we were able to really look at literacy, start to look at data. Melanie St. Pierre is a fantastic teacher. Her sister is Melissa Barthelmess. I barely survive the day without running into. They're just very high energy. To have them both in one building is not advisable. Anybody that comes after me, just from an energy level. But
the children feel it too.
Well, yes, they do. There's a palpable, swelling of the hallway when they come. It's like the Matrix movie. But as fantastic a teacher as Mrs. Barthelmess, and she's been able to not just work with our students that are having difficulty, but has jumped right in, worked with our staff with some direct instruction, observation of how they can improve their reading instruction, not only in ELA, but in science, social studies, and it's really had an impact. We're really looking to broaden her exposure next year and try to get innovative in how we use her, not only with students, but how we use her as a professional developer, and working with teachers to teach them how to teach, from the literacy standpoint, their content and how important
Is she
it is.
there, I'm sorry, is she there full-time?
She is, she was, there was a lot of talk over the summer, and like I
And
said, I
there's,
think
like,
it's really
divided.
important to note that,
Right.
Donna made some concessions so she could do that. There was a lot of talk back and forth, but I have to give Donna a lot of credit. She was willing to say, hey, listen, if you need her, take her, and, we benefited from it very much. So we're looking at literacy, but we're looking at the culture of our building too. The theme has been, more culture-based. So we had a book study, that teachers participated in, which focused on the challenges that schools have in regards to students' independent learning. So we really wanted to focus independent reading. So we really want to invigorate independent reading. So when you walk into high school, you may hear teachers asking kids as they pass, well, in conversation, well, what's the last book you read? Or are you reading a magazine? Or what's going on? So the conversation is shifting. The culture is shifting. We also start a little bit of a marketing kind of push to take pictures of teachers reading their favorite books, kind of like the old style read posters that I had seen when I was in school. So you'll see me reading, the screen definitely adds 10 pounds. But you'll see me on the screen when you walk in the front, reading, I think I was reading the Dalai Lama, book by the Dalai Lama, believe it or not, don't laugh, John. But we're trying to just promote this positiveness around independent reading, especially with our young gentlemen, which are, as Mrs. Kelly noted, are very difficult to find something for them to get excited about. The other one is our RTI and IST groups that look at struggling students. And traditionally, these have been kind of fast tracks to, Mrs. Shookman's office. Okay, nothing's working nothing's working. They need special ed, and that's really not a good thing. So the problem is that the high school is a little bit of a different animal when it comes to RTI and IST. It's a little bit, I wouldn't say easier. So there's a little bit more of a smooth implementation, I think, at the K6, K8 level. Because you have so many moving parts at the high school, or some more moving parts at the high school, we really had to look at how we did it. The group was big, it was kind of a clunky process. So under Ms. Neyer's leadership, she looked at it, and we've developed a number of different teams to address different issues. So not every size fits all. So we have a clinical team, a guidance team, and an academic team, and they're very focused on what kind of issues kids may be having and what those teams would specifically deal with. There's still some things to iron out, and again, it's a work in progress, but we're seeing interventions that are being that have been effective, and hopefully, as we move forward, it'll continue to be positive for us. All right, so in 3 years, we aspire to be a school with state-of-the-art facilities that match our high-quality instructional programs. That's a bomb plug.
There you go.
But if you heard some comments from the audience, we have programs, and this is going back a number of superintendents ago. I think sometimes we don't have facilities that help our students move forward. If you watched our show over last weekend, I mean, we had 50 kids on a stage that, bordered on a dangerous situation. So, when do our facilities start to hinder our ability to grow program? And I think it needs to be done responsibly, obviously, but I think we need to really start to ensure that we have this. This statement here. We really need facilities to move things forward. And it's not just the high school; it's the middle school, I think, as well, and other schools. So this is, the boring traditional stuff. Could you just expand those a little bit for me, Craig? Thank you. This is some of the more traditional stuff that used to come out of the 785-page academic reports that Dr. McCann used to have us do.
Perfect
He's probably
punctuation.
listening right now, but Dan, no offense, but you gave too much homework. So just an idea, I mean, we looked at the Sailor program, that's one end of the spectrum, but now we're going to look at the other end of the spectrum. And last year, we had 461 individual registrations for a class for AP courses. In addition to that, we had 230 students register for college level courses. Now, this is great. But go back to what I said before. That's a huge number, right? We have 783 kids in our high school. So almost, it's up there. High percentage of kids are taking college level course, but some kids are taking 5, 6, 7 college level courses, and there really needs to be a balance.
These statistics are just from the last academic year?
Yes, yeah, we're reporting on the last academic year.
Are those individual students, or is it, if you have one student?
They're not unique students. Yes.
So one student that goes into 3 courses would be counted 3 times?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The new opportunities, again, we talked about Foundations of Calculus. We'll continue with Foundations of Calculus 2. AP Computer Science Principles will be the first year we're running that under the Project Lead the Way umbrella. Algebra 1, we have listened to middle school parents. We have listened to the discussions about, not being able to get everything you want. And, again, spoiler alert, you never can get every class you want at the high school. But we're trying to adjust to the evolving student needs. So with the math department and some help from the middle school, we'll be looking at a single period Algebra 1. How that will work is there will be an assessment that will be given at the end of the year that will basically measure aptitude, and it's open to any student that wants to take it, and we will, decide what a cut score will be, and those students will have the opportunity to go into that single period Algebra 1. But more details to come on that, and then as the art people spoke about, we've reorganized art offerings as we start to have people that are retiring. Art is a discipline that's very specific to the person. Jan Ayala, when she came in, developed all new programs, stained glass jewelry, reinvigorated our ceramics, which is funny because she's not a 3D artist, she's actually a painter by trade, but that's her thing to do. Those are not things that are typical. It's hard to find somebody that's done stained glass jewelry, all those things. So we're going to really be looking to where we have deficiencies, which is more in the 3D design, media, film, and those areas. So we have a plan for that. We did some work with the middle school as well.
Excuse me.
Yep.
We have a lot of kids in the advanced classes, and I think it's fabulous that we have open enrollment. How are our kids doing on the AP exams and the college level? Are they getting those credits? Are they doing all of those AP exams?
Okay, so yes, and yes, and yes. Our open enrollment, we've done very well, and I don't have the graphic, but I can certainly send it to you. We've been showing data probably now for as long as I've been principal, probably before. I think it goes back to 1999, actually, on the chart. When we first did open enrollment, I remember the numbers. I think in 1999, there were 91 kids taking AP exams. It was very tracked, and the level of 3 or above was about 71%. When we implemented open enrollment, as expected with any new program, there's an implementation dip. So we had way more kids taking AP and being exposed. There was an implementation dip as far as the kids getting 3 or better. It went down to about 56%, which we expected. But gradually, over the last 12 to 13 years, it has ticked up and even exceeded what initially was 71% in 1999. Credit in college is dependent on the institution. Okay, institutions that are at the Ivy League, they require you to take those courses to even be considered, but they do not give you credit. Okay, no matter what you get. So it's a double-edged sword. You actually, if you, and I've said this before, if you look on any college website and you look at it, you look at admissions and you look at what they look at for acceptance, there's 3 things. They're going to look in any order, but there's 3 things I think you'll find consistently. class rank? Where do you rank against your other kids in your class? Did you expose yourself to the most rigorous courses? They don't ask for grade. They say, did you take the toughest courses, and then standardized testing, how you did on standardized testing. I guarantee you, if you looked up Georgetown right now, SUNY Albany, and you pick, I'll give you the choice. Pick whatever you want. Those 3 items will all be there, maybe not in the same order, but they'll be the top 3. So, yes, we make the grade, and we've been getting better every year. I think the focus has been, graduation rate. Charles Thompson, when he was on the board, used to hammer me on graduation rate. Jim, what are we doing in graduation rate? What are we doing with graduation rate? And that's a tough thing to move. If you look to the next slide.
And Jim, real quick, while you transition, Jim rattled off some statistics regarding AP. The most recent calculation, so these are kids that took an AP exam in May of 2017. 85% of high school kids that, Henton HUD high school kids that took an AP exam last May scored a 3 or better. And a three is essentially the entry level for competing for college credit, and each year it really changes. It's sort of a supply and demand kind of market. And as Jim said, you could get a 5 on an AP exam, and that may transfer or be accepted in one school and not another, or it may not be accepted, period, because of your major, your course of study, that they want you to take that class, by their professors on campus.
So graduation rate. So in honor of Charles Thompson, I always show this this slide. And you can see we usually do a 4-year span. These are cohorts, meaning students enter 9th grade in 2010 and graduate in 2014 and so on. We've consistently been around the 92 to 94 mark. We've spiked 96 2 years ago. We're back at around 95. The problem is when you're in the 90s, it's hard to move a percentage point. So really what you look at is August graduates. Okay, these may be kids that maybe failed, an half-year English 12, missed maybe a PIG credit or missing 1 credit. These August graduates, graduation rate is calculated all the way up to August. So you actually have that extra 2 months to get kids in and get them graduated. If we graduated those 5 kids, we would be around 97%. But this is where moving that 5% gets really difficult, because the dropouts you can't account for. They're dropouts. The GED diplomas, and also kids that are still enrolled, kids that are past, going to be a 5th year graduate, 6-year graduate. But we continue to look at ways to, obviously minimize dropouts, and work with those kids that are still enrolled to get them graduated as soon as possible. But I'm happy with our graduation rate. I'd love it to be 100, and we always work towards that. But sometimes life gets in the way of school too with some of these kids that are just very hard to get them focused on school when some of the other things are going on. And a comprehensive high school is not for every student. That's the other thing. So that kind of goes to what John was saying about the system. So that is my presentation. Is there any questions?
On that slide, what does district including other placements?
Okay, so district including other placements means we have students that are not currently in any of our buildings. They're outplaced in other programs that we pay for. So there are students, there may be a student that has a disability that needs to go to a specialized school, that a program that we can't offer. It could be, it's basically any student that's not placed in our district. And it traditionally brings our graduation rate down because I think we don't have control,
And they're struggling.
Yeah, and they're struggling, and I think that was a big. I really think we don't celebrate enough that ABC program, and I keep going back to it because I think it's really something that this board should be really proud of, the people before maybe some of the new people. You know, to recognize that you can bring kids back, traditionally kids that may have been in different programs around, bring them back and to do things better and to see the growth that's happening. You know, I think that's some of the things that, you know, people in Lisa's position always consider, like how can we create something here, you know, and I think we need to continue to do that because I think there's savings to be had, and I also think we just programmatically know our kids and can do it better. So.
But I think our high school should also be extremely proud of the different offerings that we have. I mean, we have ABC, we have the Sailor program, which I'm telling you, it was very, very intense to watch for me. And, you know, just the regular academic offerings as well as our whole, you know, arts program, music program, STEM programs that we offer. It's wonderful. So thank you very much.
We do a lot, Mr. Mackin, and it's really cool because, like a lot of us who are affiliated with a lot of different high schools, we do a lot for our kids, and it's cool.
And again, it's a K-12 initiative. I mean, you know, the work that we get them at the end, but there's a lot of work that goes in prior. Not to discount what our teachers do at the high school, but it is a true K-12
foundation.
You know.
Thank you. I would just ask you to remain because next we have audience comments on agenda items and if anybody has any questions on the presentations. Yeah. I'm sorry.
This is your homework.
Still better than Dr. McCann's homework. Eat a lot.
Okay, next.
I have a question.
Well, you have to.
Again?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Giovanni. This question is, I guess we'll go back to the middle school, is how do you guys communicate to the parents regarding the DBT program of its progression opportunities for the parents?
The students that were screened, the practitioners reach out and talk to the parents. So each student that's going to be invited into the program, the people that are going to do the program speak to the parent.
So is that a consent that the parent?
Yes.
Okay. Is that on a quarterly or on a parent-teacher meeting type of?
No, it's separate from that.
Okay. And then this question is for the principal. What resources can we get to those people, to the stats where you had a couple of dropouts, GEDs, that we can support those individuals to get you to be 100%?
Right. I mean, dropouts. You want to be careful with dropouts. Dropouts could mean, nowadays you get a dropout when a kid maybe he leaves our school. We don't know where he goes. You know, there's a lot of things that go into the definition of a dropout. I think the resources go mainly through the guidance people. And guidance works directly with those students, trying to keep them engaged, trying to find something that will spark an interest in them. Sometimes it's the BOCES program. Sometimes it's a different program within the high school. It's the academy program. We've been able to minimize that. Those numbers, I think, were a little higher when I first started. We've been able to minimize that. But we really need to look at those four and say what didn't work here with these four. And sometimes there's not a lot you can do with one. Maybe there's something we can do when we look at those profiles of those students and say, what can we change and do differently.
Okay. Now, do you feel that we actually reached out to these individuals?
I believe so, yeah. I think our students that are having difficulty, they receive a lot of outreach, whether it be from social workers or psychologists, guidance counselors, teachers that work with them. They're trying to keep them engaged. Okay. It's a team approach, but there's a key cog here. The student has to want to do what they need to do to move through the system. If the student's not engaged and willing to do that for whatever reason, we can provide all the resources we want. It's still going to be a very difficult thing until we get the student to become engaged, and that's usually where the problem is.
Okay. Well, the reason why I said is because we mentioned about life. Once you get to a certain age, there's some situations, and I think as a community, we need to make sure, are we really giving that 100% to that individual to balance them out, to prepare them for real life, or going into a college to prepare themselves, to manage their time. And then the reason why I asked about communication is because you're going to see a lot of flux of different cultures enter into this community. Hopefully, we see a lot of positive things coming to that, but there is sometimes language barriers. Do we diversify that communication to different cultures?
Yes.
Okay.
The district pays for people to translate documents. People are paid to translate. If I have to make a phone call and I need somebody, I have people in the building that are paid. I make a walkie-talkie call and they come down and they translate a conversation with the parent.
We also have been, through the hiring process, have acquired people, not specifically for their bilingual, prowess, but we've had over the years increased people that have bilingual ability. So like at the high school, Ms. Fael is an aide, but she has some ability to speak Spanish and some other languages. We also utilize our language teachers, ENL teachers, when they can. We have a guidance counselor that's, I would say bilingual. I would characterize as bilingual. So, it's not something that we can say, hey, we just want a bilingual person, but, we look for those skills because we understand that our community is starting to change a little bit, so.
The reason why I ask both of those questions is because as we get in a transition of different, policies and guidelines, we want to make sure that it all starts from what you said, K through 12, and are we consistent year over year with some of these numbers to be true and exact, where you can have a growing community going up, because of so many different changes, grading the employment, et cetera, and so forth. Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
I have a question. I want to say thank you, Ms. Madden, as well, because I totally appreciate all of the opportunities both of my children have in the school. There are so many programs, wonderful programs in the high school right now. I do want to bring up a couple of points, and it goes back to Mrs. Kelly, because I want to start by thanking you, because the program was amazing in the middle school, but we only started 2 years ago, and we only received a reading teacher this year for the high school. So how are we going to help catch up? I know Mrs. St. Pierre, who's also absolutely amazing, but she's only working with 9th through 11th grade. Are we also giving students that test to test their, I'm so sorry, I don't remember the actual name of the test that shows what grade level they're on, to help maybe to get you some more help?
Right. So let me give you the timeline. So we like I said, we traditionally haven't had a reading teacher at the high school. It's traditionally not something that I've encountered. But we had the need definitely this year. We received it pretty late in the process. So we had to move some schedules around and really do things on the fly. So this year has really been a year of trying to meet the needs of the students that were coming up from 9th grade, but then starting to assess as many students as we possibly can based on teacher recommendations, guidance recommendations, parents reaching out and saying, hey, listen, my student needs some help. So Ms. St. Pierre has kind of been using this year to get her feet wet and say, okay, this is what we need to do. We certainly are going to expand the 12th grade. A student that's moving into 12th grade that has some reading difficulty is not going to be cast aside. We will be expanding to meet the needs of as many of the students as we possibly can. And whether that's through direct instruction from Ms. St. Pierre, or it's her working with teachers to understand, again, how an approach from a literacy standpoint should be taken in the classroom. So, I have every confidence that we're going to be meeting the needs of our students actually in reading. I'm not concerned about it at all.
I was just trying to get more help with reading. If you need another teacher.
Okay, I'll take it. You hear that? Thank you.
If you go up and sign, then you can. Yeah, I know.
I didn't know I'd have a question when I came in.
I know, but this way we know who has spoken, and if you have any further questions, it makes it easier for us to get back to you.
Hi, I'm Colleen Kelly. I just really wanted to come up and comment again on Mary Poppins. It's the second year my daughter's been involved with the musical. I just can't believe what Claire and Mrs. Dendler and Mrs. Quinn pull off. The one thing I wanted to know, because we are surrounded by all this art, is what was absolutely stunning to me is the amount of talent from start to finish. So within the orchestra, although we have professional musicians come in, the kids are involved as well. Some of these kids I've watched since kindergarten grow up through the district. The backstage is run by all students, the AV is all students, and when you really take a step back and look at it, it's really just these three adults, also with a choreographer, getting this done. These kids are outstanding, and they do it in that tiny space. And Mr. Mackin was modest, but he did have a cameo, if anybody saw it. Yes.
And the Oscar goes to.
Yeah. So that's and just another comment on all the great programs. I think it's kind of a little bit of a well-kept secret, but we have a wonderful peer leadership program. And I would love if we could get someone to do a presentation on that, because I think it's also valuable because you have a group of students who are involved quietly, they reach out, and they also work with some of the kids in the Sailor program. And I kind of think that cross pollination of kids, you know, the social aspects and the academic aspects that they can bring to it are wonderful. So I think everyone would benefit also from a little presentation on leadership.
Mr. Redmond, I'm sure.
We love
glad to
seeing
come.
students. We love seeing teachers present. We love seeing students present. We love seeing our administrators present as well too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Charlene Garrett, thank you for the presentations. I had two kids go through this school district, one with an IEP, one without, and so I'm glad that we're implementing some new strategies.
Sure.
One question, well, I have a couple of questions, but Ms. Ruler, you mentioned, you know, there was no elementary school presentations tonight. It'd be great to hear from the elementary schools. Oh, great. What is the elementary program? I mean, in a nutshell, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I mean, how does it tie into this iReady? And then I would be interested, is there any statistics we can get of that graduation rate and what grade levels kids were at? You know, and I'll only speak for my kids, they'll probably kill me if they see this, but, you know, my one student wasn't really still at the right grade level when he graduated, which was, I'll hold myself, so I won't say it. Thanks, Mary Kat.
Yeah, home too.
I know. So it would be maybe a little bit interesting to see those stats, and I would assume that those must be, you know, somewhere that we can put those together. I would assume, but.
The elementary division, K-8, we use iReady as a universal screener. We're actually required to have a universal screener in the district that all students participate in 3 times a year to measure growth. We also do F&P reading assessment. I will tell you that this is my 3rd year in the district. When I came, we were not doing either of those things with regularity. Hence, you have lots of gaps. I think we're doing a great job now of paying attention to progress, of drilling down, as you heard, middle school, through the data to find out where. It's one thing to say a kid can't read. It's another thing to figure out where is the problem in that big word. Same with math. The kid can't do math. That could mean anything. So learning to have teachers and administrators continue to stretch themselves and continue to learn to be diagnosticians and figure out exactly where the problem is what gives us the chance to fix it. So in education, there's a very old saying that assessment drives instruction. There is nothing truer than that. If we are not assessing our kids, we don't know what they need, and therefore we're giving them things, but not necessarily the right thing to move them forward. So I think certainly the time I've been here, I see more of a team effort focused on getting to that place with kids. We're doing a much better job at elementary, and the middle school has tagged on to that, and this year with the addition of Melanie, and not Melanie alone, but Melanie, as Jim said, she is a whirlwind of energy and activity. It has transformed the way that we look at our students and offered us the immediacy of getting to fix a problem.
Our elementary presentation will be on May 15th. So you can mark that down, and if you're interested, you can definitely come back. If you have questions, email me or Mr. Hochreiter or Mrs. Dr. Roller, and we can answer your questions.
And there's not a lot of parents left, but I can tell parents that the communication for the school is very important, but you need to be a big advocate for your own child and really diagnose your child at home too. And that's a huge part of making them successful.
Thank you. I agree. Okay. That brings us to board comments. And then, can I please have a motion to adjourn?
I have, I know we're looking at literacy, so an idea that is really cool is we have adults, we have like book, it's not, I don't wanna call it a book club, but our security guard has like 4 boys that he reads with. And they like meet twice a week or something. The bus driver, the custodian, the principal, me, like, well, sorry.
We're looking at John.
Sports Illustrated. Or something.
No, but
Just,
you
it's
do
really,
talk to children.
it's just really amazing, like, when you talk about, we have them in 9th grade, boys don't like to read, well, I'm not gonna generalize that. Some people don't like to read, but they have like everybody, all adults, like just pick a group of kids and they read, so I don't, just an idea, I don't know. And I also wanna say, I think the communication in the atmosphere that we're in, that about the Pelican was much appreciated by everybody, because I think that's what was, I think people thought were a little bit missing too, is that we didn't, they wanted to know something, and I think you provided enough for them to say, okay, something was done.
Unfortunate circumstance.
Unfortunate circumstance, but.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, can I please have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second? All in favor?